We are continuing our study in Ezra this morning, and just kind of bring you up to speed of like where we are today. We're finally going back to Jerusalem today, which is good news. But just to kind of bring you up to speed if you haven't been here the last few weeks, God's chosen people. They had been promised a promised land way back with Abraham. They multiple years, a lot of things happened. They were in Egypt, they were in slavery. They got out of there. They were in the wilderness for all these years. They finally got over to the promised land. They got a king, David, or Saul, then David, and then finally Solomon comes on. They get a temple. So everything was going pretty good in the nation, God's chosen people. They had everything going on. They had a temple. They had a place to do their sacrifices. They were prosperous. They were protected. Everything was going pretty good for them. One thing they did not do, though, they had been commanded to let the land rest on the seventh year, for the land to have time to just kind of rest and to restore itself. They didn't do that for 490 years, and we looked at this last week, but it was supposed to happen every 7 years. They didn't do that, so for 490 years, they didn't do that. So 70 years had to be made up, and the land had to have a time to rest. So they went into exile, into Babylon. Jerusalem was burned to the ground. Everything, the temple that they finally had, it was taken down brick by brick, and it was destroyed, and everything was left in rubbish, and they had to go over to Babylon for 70 years. But then Persia comes in. This is all, I'm telling you, this is the Cliff Note version. Persia comes in, King Cyrus, and they overtake this Babylonian empire, and now there's a chance for them to go. They're told, you can go back to your homeland. So now that's where we're picking it up today. Ezra chapter 2, starting in verse 1. They now have permission to go back and rebuild in Jerusalem after 70 years. Ezra chapter 2, verse 1. Now these are the people of the province who came up out of the captivity of the exiles, from whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away to Babylon, and returned to Jerusalem and to Judah, each to his city. These came with Zerubbabel, Jeshua, Nehemiah, Sariah, Reliah, Mordecai, Bilshan, Mispar, Bigvai, Rehum, and Bana. I want to say banana because it looks like banana, but it's Bana. Skip down to verse 64. Because between verse 2 and verse 64, there's just a bunch of names, okay? You can go for your reading pleasure later, all right? But it's a bunch of names. It lists everybody that's coming back. Which, by the way, I will say this. This is written by Ezra. He was a chronicler. Like, he wrote the book of Chronicles. Like, he was a scribe. So it's very, very, very detailed. So you can read all those names later. Verse 64, the whole assembly numbered, you'll see the details here, 42,360, besides their male and female servants, who numbered 7,337. And they had 200 singing men and women. They got their own special shout out. Their horses were 736, their mules 245, their camels 435, their donkeys 6,720. Now, this is not my point today, but I just actually thought of this morning. I thought this was interesting. I looked at those numbers. There's around 50,000 that came back, but when I added up the horses and the mules and the camels and the donkeys, it comes out to a little over 8,000. So they had to make about a 900-mile journey, 50,000 of them, with about a little over 8,000 donkeys and mules. And by the way, a donkey, I've never worked, but they're just kind of slow, you know what I mean? But that's all they had to go 900 miles. So just the journey alone was a pretty big deal. So today what I want us to talk about, we're in this series called The Reset and the Rebuild. And so today as we talk about rebuilding, they're talking about rebuilding Jerusalem. They're talking about going back and rebuilding their temple and their city. That's what they're talking about. For our context, we're going to talk about rebuilding Wright Baptist Church. Okay? So the first point today is the rebuild requires sacrifice. The rebuild requires sacrifice. So we just saw that number there. There's about 50,000-ish that went back to Jerusalem. But what we don't know the exact number of is the number that stayed behind in Babylon. Some think it's around 1/3 that went back and 2/3 stayed, meaning there's about 100,000 that had the option to go back to Jerusalem that chose to stay there in Babylon. Now, some theologians think it was actually a higher number. I tend to think it was a higher number as well. I think more than 100,000 stayed behind in Babylon. The rebuild requires sacrifice, and not all were wanting to make that sacrifice. So why would somebody who's been in captivity, in exile for 70 years, choose not to go back to their homeland? Well, there's a lot of good reasons, actually. One, we talked about this a few weeks ago, Babylon was nice. Babylon was the place to be. And think about it, they've been there 70 years. They got good schools, good restaurants, they got theater on the weekends. Babylon actually had culture even back in this time period. So everything that they could possibly want was there. Some of them had been there their entire lives. There were people there less than 70 years old. They didn't even know Jerusalem other than hearing the stories from the past. And they're looking around going, we've got it pretty good here. And by the way, Cyrus has said you can worship here. You can stay here and still worship your God. And that was totally allowed. So why would some choose not to go back? Well, there's a lot of good reasons that they would choose not to go back. They had plenty of stuff going on right there for them. Security. They had jobs. They had income. They had status. All these kind of things. But here's what I want us to hear. The rebuild requires a great deal of sacrifice. For that 50,000 that decided to go back to Jerusalem, they're leaving behind comfort, luxury. They're leaving behind everything they've known for 70 years to go back to this place that is rubble. I went over, my mother-in-law lived in Panama City during Hurricane Michael. Fortunately, she came to our house the day before, but the very next day after Hurricane Michael hit Panama City back in 2018, and I know you guys have had the hurricanes here as well. Some of you can think back to Ivan, even to Sally, and Opal, some of these that have done damage. But when I've seen other hurricanes. When I went over to Panama City the day after Hurricane Michael, Panama City Beach was okay-ish. There was a few trees and limbs down, and there were some fences knocked over. And it's horrible if it happens to your house, but it wasn't widespread in Panama City Beach. But if you've been over there, you cross over this Hathaway Bridge from Panama City Beach into Panama City, and I promise you, you get at the top of that bridge and you start looking over the other side, and it was, I know it's a cliche phrase, but it looked like a war zone. It was just flat. And I used to live over there, and I got lost in the town because the landmarks that I once thought I knew, I didn't even know. There were no road signs. And the weirdest thing for me, there were no trees. Like you can just see for miles, almost like we were out west or something. And then there's just bricks and debris and all this kind of stuff. But I think Jerusalem would have looked far worse than even what I saw that day looked, because it had been sitting there for 70 years. If you knock something over and leave it sitting in our climate, in our weather, leave it sitting for, 2 months. Just between here and Gulf Breeze, when I drive in, there's some old homes and some buildings that have been, there's one down here on Beale. Used to be a coffee shop, I think. There's one, it's been sitting there for a while, and vines and weeds start growing up over it, and it's just horrible. Jerusalem was knocked flat to the ground, and it sat out in the elements for 70 years. Mold, raccoons, I don't know. It was horrible. And that's what these people are going back to. They're leaving this nice luxury of Babylon and going back to this knocked over, horrible, horrible place. It requires sacrifice to do a rebuild, sometimes a very hard sacrifice. Now for us, church, the rebuild of Wright Baptist Church is going to require some sacrifice. It's going to require time. By the way, I want to commend you. Over the last several weeks, I have seen so many people coming up here and doing all kinds of different stuff. This church is being activated, and it's incredible. It's fun to watch, okay? You guys you're rolling up your sleeves, you're putting on the work gloves, you're putting time in. I already see that. It's incredible. But I want you to know that we're in the starting gate. We've got a lot to do to rebuild here. It's going to require sacrifice. Now, this is not on my notes, but I feel like God's impressing my spirit to say this right now. When I say something like sacrifice, when I talk about time, and I want to talk about energy and finances and all this kind of stuff as well, when I say that, there are those that absorb this a lot, and I don't want you to feel anxious and guilty. Like if you're the person that's already going, I need to do more, you're probably one of those people that's already doing stuff. Like we all need to chip in. Okay, we don't need the 80%, 20% thing going on. Y'all know that rule, right? 80% of the people do 20% of the work, and 20% do 80% of the work. We need all of us doing our part, okay? So I don't want you, if you're one of those who does everything already, to feel the guilt, I hope you hear me, and the weight to do even more. No, do what you do and do it well. We all have gifts, and we all need to use our gifts for the kingdom of God. Amen? Amen. Okay. So it's going to require time, and I'm already noticing some of you guys are doing that. It's going to require energy. It takes effort. It's going to take effort to rebuild this church for all that God wants it to be. And it's going to take finances. Oh, here we go. Every time I come to church, that's all they talk about is money, money, money. No, it's not. But it takes money. It takes money, and it's going to take money to rebuild the church. You guys are faithful givers, and I appreciate that. And look, God appreciates that. The kingdom of God appreciates that. But it takes finances to do some of the stuff that we want to do around here. Just keeping up with stuff. We got an extremely high power bill around this place. I don't know if y'all know that. Like, it's way high. And we're doing some stuff trying to do our part to be good stewards of the resources here. We've moved our Wednesday nights from this building out there. It's been going great, right? It's crowded, though. We're going to expand out there. It's a great thing. We had about 40 people Wednesday night in prayer meeting. Incredible. Thank you guys for coming out for that. As we pray together, God's going to move in our midst. So we need finances. We need, there's so much technology up there. Like, we can land a plane on Mars up there. I don't know. Like, there's so much stuff up there. It just takes a lot to do this. And then the AC bill, the electricity bill, curriculum we have. Anyway, I can go on and on about that, but we want to get into doing more stuff, like advertising and letting the community know that we're here. We want to get to where we're giving stuff away, where we can help people who are in need. We want to be able to start doing more of that kind of stuff, but it's going to require sacrifice. By the way, as a side note, I'm talking about this from a church level. Like, it's going to require sacrifice. The rebuild requires sacrifice from a church. But as a side note, it requires sacrifice. Your walk with Jesus Christ requires personal sacrifice. Now, we have somehow, in culture, we have somehow relegated, following Jesus to be, over the years, this has happened, walk an aisle. We've got some cards here. You'll sit down, you'll fill this card out. We'll put your name in a file cabinet. We'll stand you up here. We'll applaud and say, thanks for joining the church. Amen. Now, from here, we want you to go out and try to be a nice person. Try to come as often as you can. Try not to cuss. People don't like cussing. Just do your best you can in this world. Just be good, okay? And we've kind of relegated, like, a Christian, not all of us, but like in culture, I think Christianity has sometimes been made to be this just God and country kind of thing. Just be a good old boy. Just be good. Just be good. It's more than that. It requires sacrifice. Look at Luke chapter 14 with me. Luke chapter 14, starting in verse 28. For which one of you, when he wants to build a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who observe it begin to ridicule him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Or what king, when he sets out to meet another king in battle, will not first sit down and consider whether he is strong enough with 10,000 men to encounter the one coming against him with 20,000? Or else, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So then, none of you can be my disciple who does not give up all his possessions. The words of Jesus Christ. That is some strong words right there. I like in the first part of that, in the verse 28 there, where it says that if he's building a tower, you sit down first, you calculate the cost, see if you have enough to complete it. You lay the foundation, and others are going to ridicule you if you don't have enough to build upon that foundation. Here's the thing I think that we can take with that. Following Jesus requires sacrifice. And like when somebody gives their life to Jesus, it's almost like we need to let them know, listen, yes, you are now get to go to heaven. That's awesome. But Jesus requires your life. That's what Christianity is. Jesus says to follow me, not me, him. Jesus says to follow me and to sacrifice your life to him. So here's how that plays out with us. It says that none of you can be my disciple who does not give up all his own possessions. We're not just talking about stuff here. We're not just talking about our toys. We're talking about everything. Everything we have belongs to God. Everything that we are is His. Our talents, our gifts, our skills, they're given by God for His purposes, not for our glorification, but for His. Your family, even your children, are God's. They're on loan to you from the Father. Now that one gets a little harder, right? Here's something I promise you. It will change your outlook on everything in life if we realize that everything is His in the first place. It makes actually sacrificing easier because it's not even mine. You know, if you give me something and you say, hey, Kevin, can you hold this for me for a while? Like, you can borrow it, but I'm going to come back and get it one day. You can use it for a while, but I'm going to have to come back and get it one day. If you do that for me, it's going to change the way I treat that thing. I'm never going to take ownership of it. I may use it. Are y'all following this illustration here? But I know I'm just using it for a while until I have to give it back. That's the same thing with everything. Everything with God. So if we start thinking about sacrifice, well, it's just, I got a lot going on. It's hard for me to give up my time. It's not your time. It's His time. Now, this is not, what I'm telling you is truth, but I know practically in life, it's hard, okay? Money, it's His money. Talents and gifts, they're on loan from Him. They're to be used for His glory. Your kids, this one gets harder. Imagine you're a parent and your child comes and says, I feel like God is calling me to North Korea, where they kill Christians. And you're a mama. That's not easy, right? That's not easy. Like, are you sure that's God? But they're His. And if God is calling them, we release them to Him. Easy? No. Can I guarantee you, I would even have that response, I don't know. Are you sure it's God? Are you positive it's God? Maybe He's called you to North Dakota, not North Korea. It's all His. With all of this said, it's going to feel like sacrifice. And sacrifice on this side, it hurts. Sacrifice is hard. As a child even, you know how quickly we're taught possession? Go into a nursery at a church, and there's a 4-letter word, not a bad word, M-I-N-E, mine. They learn that word pretty quickly, right? Even if it's not theirs, it becomes theirs. Once you hand it to them, it's mine. We are like that, okay? Church, are we willing to sacrifice? Are we willing to sacrifice our time, our security, yes, even some of our finances? Are we willing to sacrifice? 50,000 returned to Jerusalem, 100,000, 2/3 decided not to. Not everybody will sacrifice, but the 1/3 that did rebuilt Jerusalem. We're going to get to that eventually. We need sacrifice, okay? Go to Ezra chapter 3, verse 1 with me. It says, now when the 7th month came and the sons of Israel were in the cities, the people gathered together as one man to Jerusalem. The second point here is the rebuild requires unity. I almost missed this one as I was preparing, but this one little phrase stuck out to me, and I had to dig in and study it a little bit with some commentaries. But it says, the people gathered together as one man to Jerusalem. There is a lot going on here. When they came back to Jerusalem, the first thing they did, they kind of went to their different little cities and to just kind of check out. Someone went to Jericho and Nazareth. They went to all these places to kind of see, just take a stock. But then it says, the people gathered together as one man to Jerusalem. They didn't have text. They didn't have email. They didn't have a communication system. I truly believe that God Himself was doing something in their spirits. Remember, we looked a few weeks ago that He stirred in the hearts of His people to get them here. He also stirred in the heart of King Cyrus. And I believe He's doing it once again here. He's stirring the hearts to bring them all back to Jerusalem. And then they came together as one man. This unity, this rebuilding requires unity thing, there's two aspects to this, I really truly believe. One aspect is spiritual, where God starts unifying the hearts of His people, which, by the way, I think He's doing around here. There is such a good spirit I hope y'all feel it and see it. I know you do because you're all telling me, like, there's a good spirit around here. There's a spiritual element to this where God unifies the hearts of his people for a common purpose. But then there's a second aspect, that the spiritual aspect is kind of God's side of the street, and he does that. But then there's a second aspect, it's an intentional aspect on our parts. So God stirs hearts and God spiritually unifies us. But then there's an intentionality on our part where we unify together and we come together. Unity doesn't always mean agreement. But agreement we can agree on some things all together for sure. The cross, Jesus, mission, this kind of things, okay? Different styles and different colors of carpets, this kind of stuff we can disagree upon, and that's fine. Those are just things and stuff, right? But we intentionally unify, and God spiritually unifies. It says they all gathered together as one man in Jerusalem. A unified church can do a lot of great things. A unified church can do a lot of great things. God will bless Unity Church. And here's the good news. I really believe this church is coming together in a way that I haven't seen. Like, it's awesome to see this. We gather together, church, as one man. All right? Number 3, the rebuild requires worship. The rebuild requires worship. Look at Ezra chapter 3, verse 2 with me. Then Jeshua, the son of Josadak, and his brothers the priests, and Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and his brothers arose and built the altar of the God of Israel to offer burnt offerings on it. As it is written in the law of Moses, the man of God. So they set up the altar on its foundation, for they were terrified because of the peoples of the lands, and they offered burnt offerings on it to the Lord, burnt offerings morning and evening. So here they return to Jerusalem. They're back in Jerusalem. The first thing they did was to build an altar to God. They didn't build the temple. They didn't build a wall. Nehemiah is about to start working on some of that, but they didn't do that first. They didn't build a temple. They didn't build a wall. They built an altar. They prioritized their worship of God as the most important thing. It's the first thing they did. Remember, the whole reason they got over in exile in the first place is what they had strayed away from the commands. They had everything going on, but they had neglected to do the things that God had instructed them to do. And so when they got back, you better be sure in 70 years they're going, well, if we go back, you ever done that with God? If you'll just help me get back to where I was, I will. That's what they were doing. And they were actually fulfilling it. They said, we're building an altar to God when we get back. And this is the first thing they did. It's the very first thing they did. They build the altar. Look at Ezra 3:3 again with me. It says they set up the altar on its foundation, for they were terrified because of the peoples of the lands. And they offered burnt offerings on it to the Lord, burnt offerings morning and evening. Look, they were terrified because the peoples of the land, they've been gone for all this time. They had been overtaken. They heard those stories. They knew those stories. Some of them were old enough to remember it. They get back. They don't know what's going on around them, and so they're terrified. They're scared. It would have been super easy for them to go, all right, we've got to build an altar, but before we build the altar, we got to secure the perimeter, right? But they didn't do that. They said altar first, worship first, God first. And embedded in this, it's almost like because he's going to take care of us. Like, it doesn't come right out and say that, but that had to be what they were thinking. But it does say they were terrified. Do you realize you can be terrified and scared as a believer and still do the right thing? And God will still handle your fear. It's okay, right? He's still there. They were terrified because of the peoples, but they did it. They set up this altar. So it's so easy, though, in our context, it'd be so easy for us to not prioritize worship because we got a lot to do, right? It would be so easy for us to go, okay, let's establish all the stuff first, and then we'll have a place that we can worship God. But let's get everything in place first. Let's secure the perimeter. Maybe even personally, sometimes we do that. God, I'll serve you. God, I'll do great things for the kingdom of God, but first, I need to kind of secure my perimeter. I need to kind of get my family settled down. I need to get my 401k Yeah, right. You know, in place, get everything kind of right. Let me get all this stuff done, and then God, once I get that done, then I'll worship you with everything. You're all old enough in this room to realize that day never comes, right? We can prepare for the rest of our lives to get to the point where finally everything's ready. Now, there's nothing else on my to-do list. I'm done. I found the end of the internet. You know, you never get there, right? It never happens. We have to prioritize God first, worship first in everything, and then we can start building upon that. But worship, 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 worship first. Look at Matthew chapter 6, verse 33 with me. It's a verse you probably know. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all of these things will be added to you. Church, here's how this speaks to you as an individual. Seek him first. And all the stuff that you think you need, he's going to say you don't really need that. Or, here, child, you get that. Whatever. We put him first. Priorities change. Everything changes, and God takes care of it. Here's how it functions for us as a church. We seek him first. All the things will be added. We need a lot to do around here. We got a lot to do. We've got a big mission. There's extra seats in here. I don't know if y'all noticed that, but there's some extra chairs in here today, all right? That's sarcasm. Y'all with me? Okay. We can do it, but we don't do it. We put him first. We seek first the kingdom of God, and all of these things will be added unto us. I'm off notes. Here's what's the temptation. Here's the temptation. We got to fill these seats. All right. We'll get the blimp to fly over and put a message on the side. I'm exaggerating, but that's the temptation, is to come up with all these ideas, all right? Ideas are not bad. We're going to do some of that stuff. But seek him first. All this stuff's going to be added. We got a lot of projects to do around this church. We got a lot of stuff to fix. But we seek him first. Do you realize that God could send somebody to our church tomorrow that could pay for an entire roof on that other building down there? It can happen. It can happen. Like, we seek him first. We pray to him. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He can take care of it. We seek him first, as individuals and as a church. Now, I also want you to notice, and this is in, it's in Ezra 3 again, I believe. It says they offered their burnt offerings on it to the Lord, burnt offerings morning and evening. What I want you to see in that verse is that it was done continually. So it's not like a one-time thing. It's not like a one and done. It's not like we come and we worship just on Sunday mornings. Morning and evening, day and night and day. We lift up our praises. We lift up our God. This altar they set it up and it kept burning. Church, we need a flame inside of each one of us as this church. We're not a Sunday church and a Wednesday church. We're a church in the community. Sunday through Saturday and next Sunday, and it just keeps going. We are a church. The people of God, we are a church, and our flame is never put out. It's like the old the torch, right? You know, the Olympics. That flame hadn't gone out since Greece days, I think, is what they say. I've always thought maybe somebody accidentally put it out and went, don't tell anybody, you know, relight it, you know, but that's what they say. It's burned. But that's what we need. We need to be burning brightly all the time, as individuals and as a church. The last thing, the rebuild requires remembrance. Ezra chapter 3, verse 4. This one would be easy to miss, but I'm going to explain it to you. Ezra 3, verse 4. Rebuild requires remembrance. They celebrated the Feast of Booths, as it is written, and offered the fixed number of burnt offerings daily, according to the ordinances as each day required. So this one would be easy to miss, but the Feast of Booths, there are 7 feasts that are listed. They're in Leviticus, I think it's chapter 25. There are 7 feasts of God, 7 feasts of Israel, but they're really feasts to God that are mentioned there in Leviticus 25. One of those is the Feast of Booths. The Feast of Booths is sometimes referred to as the Feast of Tabernacles. The Hebrew word is Sukkot. So you'll sometimes hear these different words used interchangeably. It is this time of year event, okay? So this year, and it's actually, these 7 feasts, you'll know Passover. You've heard of that one, right? That's the big granddaddy. All of them are built upon that. You've heard of Day of Atonement. There's this one. There's Shavuot, which is Day of Pentecost. So we'll do this another time. It's really fascinating to hear these different feasts. But they're still celebrated today. And this year, just so you know, October 6th through October 13th, it's a week-long celebration. It's the festival of the Feast of Booths, the Feast of God, the Feast of Sukkot is sometimes referred to, the Feast of Tabernacles. So what this feast did, and this is why this is so cool. This is so cool. So it usually happens this time of year, but what they did during this feast, Sukkot, which is the Hebrew word, means a temporary shelter. So it was a celebration of when they had come out of Egypt, they got over into the wilderness, and for 40 years they wandered around and they had to live in temporary dwellings. They had to live in these tents for 40 years. And so this feast is a way to remember those days and to thank God for how He provided the manna from heaven, these different things, for those 40 years. That's what this feast celebrates. Still goes on today. What's cool to me is they get over into Jerusalem. They built this altar. What they didn't have was a house. But they so happened to get there about the time that they're going to start celebrating the Feast of Booths, the temporary shelter. So to celebrate this festival, they had to build these temporary shelters. How convenient on the timing. They needed that anyway, right? You know, God is so good. The timing worked out perfect for them that they had to do this thing. And by the way, they instituted that once again, they put the altar up and they also put the feast in place. God had commanded them to do this and they said, we've got to do this. And they did with nothing going on. But I love the practicality of it. Hey, we need a tent anyway. Let's celebrate the Feast of Booths. I love how practical that is. So for us, there is the remembrance. So for us, we're going to remember some things from the past, and we're going to celebrate these things from the past, and we're going to put some of these things from the past back in place. We did it last week with the Lord's Supper. And we're going to remember some of these things and make them part of who we are. So one last thing today. Look at Ezra chapter 3, verse 6 with me. Verse 6. From the first day of the 7th month, they began to offer burnt offerings to the Lord. And here's the part I want you to see. But the foundation of the temple of the Lord had not been laid. Once again, before they did any of the stuff, they kind of had a preparation. They had sacrifice. They unified themselves together. Unified by intentionality with each other, but also God was just drawing their hearts to each other. They had worship. They put the altar in place, and they remembered some things from the past. They worshiped these commands and stuff from the past, but they did all of this. They did all of this before the foundation of the temple, the Lord, it had not been laid. They did all this in the first place. Here's what we are looking at, church. We've got a lot to do. And as we're starting to do stuff, the most important things we're going to do is stuff right here inside of our hearts and stuff right here inside of our spirits. We unify together. We sacrifice together. We do these things together. We remember the past together. We do all of these things together. As we do them together, then it's like we're ready to go. It's important. It's important to get everything. It's a foundational kind of level thing. Then we're ready to go. So the questions we ask ourselves, are we unified? And if we're not, how do we make that happen? Are we ready? And this is a personal question we have to ask ourselves. Are we ready to make a sacrifice? And that's an individual question everybody has to make. Can you give a little more time? Can you give a little more energy? Can you give a little more money? What can you sacrifice to help? We unify ourselves, and the main thing I would tell you today, the main point I would tell you from all of these today is we got to put the altar in the place. And we put Him first, seek first the kingdom of God. And all these things are given, right? If we put Him first, a lot of this other stuff actually falls into place. If we put Him first, we are unified. I hope you see that. Because we're putting Him first in everything that we do. I just want to tell you this, and this is, as I was praying about this message, and not just this, but even Ezra. Matter of fact, okay, I'll tell you this. This series is called Reset and Rebuild. I almost called this series The Comeback. because that's truly in my heart. I believe God put those words. I decided not to because I like the word reset and rebuild because I think it was more practical for what we've got to do. But in my heart of hearts, what I believe is there's a comeback coming for Wright Baptist Church. I'm off notes, but I can attribute this loosely to my wife. I'm glad she's not in here. College football, okay? There are teams that they're not good, they're bad, and then they get a new coach in. But there's a word thrown around a lot in college football worlds and even in professional sports, but the word is culture. And they talk about it's a culture of winning, it's a culture of excellence, it's a culture. And so I think a lot of what we're talking about today is culture, church. We're developing a culture around here of excellence. We're developing a culture of putting Him first. A culture of prayer. I'm going to keep telling you that one. Prayer, 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 prayer first, prayer last, prayer in the middle. Praying and seeking Him. We're developing a culture around here. A culture of welcoming people in and loving them. It's a culture. And so I really believe a comeback can occur, will occur, but a lot of what we're doing right now is developing that culture. And here's the good news. I'm looking around here, I'm looking at just about everybody in this room, maybe everybody in this room. You got the right heart already. Like, we've got a good start here. You know, I did a church plant years ago, and we had actually pretty good success with that. We ran about 4 to 5 years with that church. Started in my living room, grew to pretty good size, 130, 140 people kind of thing. But it was hard, okay? It was a lot of sacrifice and a lot of tough stuff. We didn't have 140 in my living room, okay? We started there. We ended up being in a skating rink over in Panama City Beach. But here's what was hard about that, though, is we did it like just in a living room, and we kind of just started growing, okay? We've got buildings. They got to be worked on, but you're sitting in pews with a sound system and air conditioning and lights. I mean, we've already got stuff. Like when I started, we didn't have that there at that church. We've got finances. We've got stewardship already in place, okay? We've got some things in place. So we've got a foundation already kind of built here. Now, it can be expanded and grow. I hope y'all are with me because I'm way off notes. I'm just kind of talking right now, talking shop, all right? We can grow. We've got a foundation here. We have to have the culture. We have to sacrifice. We have to be unified. We have to put Him first in every single thing that we do. Before we close today, I'm just going to get a little bit off notes here. So this week we've got, this is actually more of announcements, but this is, I think, important here because it relates to this. This week we're going to be doing a lot of cleanup around here. We're going to be going through closets and by the way, if y'all walk around this campus, like, be careful. If you ever open a door, just do it like this. Open and step back because you don't know if you're going to get like clobbered by something. Like, there's a lot of stuff in a lot of closets around here, okay? So we're going to be doing some cleaning out, but cleaning up. And by the way, some of it's going to be put back. We're going to use some of this stuff. I know some of y'all are worried about, we may need that. Like, we're not getting rid of stuff like we're going to need, okay? God's going to send us a bunch of babies, so we're keeping the cribs. Amen? Okay. So just know that. But here's what I want to tell you. This is part of that culture thing, though, I want you to hear. As I walk around this campus, and I'm starting to do this myself, but like I see stuff sometimes, and there's a piece of white, right? You can pick it up. Like that literally just happened live. Almost, I didn't put it, that was not a pre-plant, okay? That was on the piece of paper is on the floor. Here's what you can start doing, a part of our culture around here, is when you see it, pick it up. Okay? Like, we can all do that. You know the old adopt a highway thing? You've seen it on the highway? I think we're going to get to the point where we almost adopt an area. So, like, if you have a Sunday school class and you could get, like, your area and maybe the area next to it. This is not going to end now, y'all. I'm sorry. The OCD is kicking in. But they're everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere. So, there's 2 of them up here now. So, adopt your area. Adopt your area and use your eyeballs. If you see something, pick it up. If you see something, this week I came into the offices and I think you may have been standing there with me, but there was the big one, like a praying mantis or whatever. He was dead though. He was just like on the window, right, with like a spider web on him. So, I could just leave him, but I got him, right? I got a paper towel and I got him. We clean up little by little by little by little. Everybody's eyeballs on it. Everybody does your part. We'll clean this place up. We'll make it more inviting. It's all about God. It's all about the altar. But I'm going to tell you this. It's just practical. When a mama comes and they bring their babies and it's dirty, they're probably not coming back. I love y'all, but we got to clean it up, all right? And we will, and we're going to. Amen? Okay. All right. That was off notes. A comeback is coming. Let's pray together.